I'm Jay Elias, General Legal Counsel at Dyer Lake Funeral Home in North Attleboro. Welcome to this episode of Live and Learn, a series of programs designed to be informative, educational, and upbeat, and always intended to enhance and encourage our personal wellness and awareness. Life is an endless series of choices. We've all heard it, and more often than not, we've experienced it. Turn left, turn right, coffee or tea, white, wheat, or rye. Make eye contact or quickly look the other way. The premise of this program is about choices, whether it's this or that, big or small. Although there are many times when it really doesn't matter in the scheme of things, there are times when the choices you make can be life-altering. Would you rather is a question and answer game in which people choose between two often, but not always impossible, situations. It can be either lighthearted or thought-provoking, and it's often used to open a dialogue between people, whether as a social icebreaker or a collegial conversation starter. And best of all, you don't have to explain your answers unless you want to. But dialogue certainly can inspire participants to use a bit of mental dexterity, shall we say. For example, consider a few would you rather questions. Would you rather travel 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future? Would you rather have telekinesis, that's the ability to move things with your mind, or telepathy, the ability to read minds? Would you rather be stuck on an island for eternity, alone or with someone you hate? Would you rather fulfill your biggest wish or resolve your greatest regret? Would you rather be in history books for something terrible or atrocious, or be forgotten completely after you've died? Walk or run? Picture this. It's a warm summer day, and although there are some ominous clouds in the sky, there are also some patches of blue sky. The forecast is typically vague, cloudy with a chance of showers. So you decide to take a short walk, and being the optimist that you are, you decide there's no need for either a raincoat or an umbrella. Of course, out of nowhere, after you've begun your walk, the skies quickly darken and the clouds burst open. Do you walk or run back home? You may remember once having heard that you'll get less drenched if you walk, albeit briskly, rather than run. Or was it the other way around? Amazingly, countless people, including scientists, mathematicians, meteorologists, have actually taken the time and effort to analyze the question of whether you get more wet walking or running in the rain. For example, in 1976, a Harvard University mathematician by the name of David Bell worked out what he called the definitive answer. And that was, if the rain is falling vertically, or if the wind is blowing in your face, you should run. The faster you run, the less wet you'll get over the same distance, he surmised. He also found that if the wind is blowing from behind, although you should still run, there's an optimum speed at which you'll get the least wet. And that, he said, was the speed of the wind. Really, he undertook an in-depth analysis on this subject. In the final analysis, even if you were to run at a world record pace, his formula showed that you'd only get about 10% less wet by running than if you were to simply stroll home. Hardly seems worth the effort. This or that. Think multiple choice. Here's a flashback for many of you. It's often said that when taking a multiple choice test and you're really not sure of any of the choices for the answer, you should stay with your first guess. Trust your instincts, it said. When in doubt, stick it out. So the question is it true that your first instincts are always the best? Psychological research has shown countless times that we're generally worse off when we stick with our uncertain or instinctive answer on a multiple choice test when we're totally unsure of the answer. And in one published survey made up of more than 30 other studies conducted over a 70-year period of time, it was found that on average, people who changed their answers did better than those who didn't. As it turns out, in none of the studies did anyone score lower because they changed their mind. Just the opposite, in fact. Study after study has shown that when people are pretty much totally uncertain about the answer to a multiple choice question and go back and change their initial answer, they're more likely to end up changing the answer from a wrong one to the correct one. So why do people stick with their first answer? It's often suggested it's because it feels more painful to know that you got an answer wrong because you changed it than being wrong because you didn't change it. So you don't change it. And if you think about it, in life generally, it seems we remember more clearly the times in our life when we've changed our minds from something that turned out to have been the right thing to something we later realized was wrong. And add that to the finding that when taking a test, people will often anticipate the regret they'll feel for having made a wrong choice after having initially made the right one. They convince themselves that their first instinct was probably right, even though it's probably wrong. Did you follow that? This or that. Is it more effective at killing germs if you wash your hands in warm water or cold water? According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, it makes no difference whether you wash your hands in warm or cold water. What matters is you use soap. The CDC tells us that with soap, either warm or cold water will remove the same number of germs from your hands. But as you probably know, it's not the water that kills the germs, it's the soap. Without soap, to be effective at eliminating the germs on your hands, water would need to be hot enough to scald your hands. That's not a good thing. The water and not its temperature is what helps create soap lather, and it's the soap that removes germs from your skin when you wash. And by the way, the CDC advises that we should use plain soap and water to wash our hands, none of the antibacterial soap, except for professionals in healthcare settings. And the CDC suggests that lathering with soap and scrubbing your hands for 20 seconds is important to the process because those actions physically destroy and remove the germs. 20 seconds can seem like a long time when you're standing at a sink. Common advice is to wash as long as it takes to sing the Happy Birthday song twice. This or that. Have you ever wondered what the best option is for buying a lottery ticket? This, choose your own lucky number. That, buy a quick pick ticket. Let the computer do the choosing for you. So is one choice better than the other to win that lottery jackpot? The short answer is no. It's actually a very common misconception that the odds of winning are somehow different if you select your own numbers than if you let the computer choose for you and go that quick pick route. But it's not true. The odds of winning remain exactly the same no matter how you pick. And by the way, what are those odds? Let's just say they're not in your favor. The odds of winning a Powerball jackpot, no matter the size of the jackpot or the number of people playing, stand near 1 in 292 million. And for Mega Millions, the odds of winning the jackpot are about 1 in 302 million. Both of those odds are based on how many different ways the numbers could be drawn in any game. Since the numbers stay the same in each drawing, the odds remain the same, regardless of how many tickets are sold or the size of the jackpot. And if you think you can better your odds of winning by purchasing more tickets, consider this. If you bought 2 Powerball tickets instead of just 1, your odds would increase, but only from 1 in 292 million to 2 in 292 million. So is there any way to actually guarantee you'll win the big jackpot? Well, it seems you'll need both time and a lot of money just to make a go of it. And the short answer is really no. Here are some of the logistics behind that. With Powerball, for example, players select 5 numbers from a set of 69 white balls and 1 number from 26 red Powerballs. Each ticket costs $2. So if you were to buy every possible combination of numbers at $2 a ticket, it would cost you about $584 million. Assume you had that much money to invest. It may seem like a good investment when the jackpot is, say, $1.5 billion. But think again. If more than one lucky player has a winning ticket, you're going to have to share the winnings. And when the jackpot was estimated at one time to be $1.5 billion, the single winner was going to get $680 million after taxes. All it would take is more than one winner, and your winnings fall far below your investment of $584 million. And then there's a somewhat practical problem of how to fill out a ticket for every one of the 292 million combinations you'd be choosing and buying. Believe it or not, statisticians have actually analyzed this. And according to some reports, even if you could complete each one of those tickets in, let's say, 30 seconds, it would take nearly 278 years for a single person to complete the task of completing each one of those tickets. And when it comes to winning either the Powerball or the Mega Millions lottery jackpot, you might want to consider these other events in life, which are a lot more likely to occur, starting with the one people mention the most, and that's the likelihood of getting struck by lightning. According to the National Weather Service, you have a 1 in 15,000 chance of being struck by lightning, meaning you have a far better chance of being hit by lightning on your way to buy the Powerball ticket than you do winning the Powerball. And here's another one that should reinforce just how unlikely it is that you'll win the Powerball jackpot prize. You're actually more likely to be hit by a meteorite than winning the Powerball jackpot. Rest assured, though, even that's a major stretch. The odds of being hit by a meteorite and dying are about 1 in 1.5 million, according to National Geographic. And the National Safety Council estimates that the odds of dying by either a hornet, wasp, or bee sting or by a dog attack are roughly 1 in 50,000. Compare that to the odds of winning the jackpot, which are, again, roughly 1 in 300 million. Which again means you're more likely to be killed by hornets, wasps, bees, or a dog attack when you're on the way to buy that Powerball ticket than you are of actually winning the big jackpot. And this last one, your best odds at winning something big may well be sinking a hole-in-one on the golf course, even if you're a true amateur golfer. But by big, I mean big bragging rights, not big money. Despite the seemingly improbable odds that a person can hit a golf ball into a hole in one shot from at least 150 yards, it happens all the time. And the odds are far better than your odds of winning a lottery jackpot. According to the National Hole-in-One Association, yes, there really is an association, which based its findings on data collected over 30 years, the odds of sinking a hole-in-one are about 1 in 12,500 for an amateur golfer and about 1 in 2,500 for a pro. So speaking of money and this and that, you may think this one's a trick question, but here goes anyways. Imagine you're presented with two options from which to choose. This, option 1, you'll receive $1 million, $1 million in cash today. No strings attached, no taxes owed either. That is option 2. You'll receive 1 penny today, along with the promise of it doubling in value each subsequent day for a total of 30 days. No strings attached, no taxes owed. You probably know the answer to this one because the obvious answer would be to take the $1 million right now. So there must be a reason why there's a second option with those pennies. And if you opt for the pennies, here's how it plays out. You get your first penny on day 1, and on day 2, that penny is doubled. So you get 2 pennies. On day 3, you'll get 4 pennies, and then continue doubling the value every day for the rest of the month, assuming there are 30 days in the month. As of the 20th day, the money would have added up to a little less than $10,000, and you'd probably be thinking that you should have taken the $1 million cash. But over those last 10 days in the month, the money will have multiplied by more than 1,000 times. And thanks to the benefits of compounding, by the end of the 30th day, your 1 penny will have resulted in more than 536 million pennies, which is about $5,360,000. This or that. Some people say it's one of the best parts about going to a professional baseball game, the possibility of catching a ball in the stands. And baseball is the sport of statistics, as we know. It's not hard to believe that some people have, in fact, studied how to improve your chances. In fact, one so-called expert, a guy by the name of Zach Hampel, well, he's managed to catch close to 10,000 baseballs since 1990, including Barry Bonds' 724th career home run and Alex Rodriguez's 3,000th hit, a home run, by the way. Hampel says the temptation for a lot of people is to stand right in the front row because you can see the field. He believes that most people think that no one can reach in front of them if the ball is hit to them. But the front row is always the most crowded row, and you can't seem to move. So he hangs back at least a few rows where it's emptier, and he tries to consider how far it will be for a ball to reach him. And he assesses whether it's a right-handed or a left-handed batter and determines the likely angle for foul balls to go. And he says another bit of strategy is having the freedom to move. To catch any batted ball, he says the key is to not be trapped in the middle of a row, which means whenever possible, he sits in an empty row or at the end of the row so he can move up and down and sideways. Finally, he says, it may seem too simple, but it works. Just ask a ball player to throw you a ball. Here's one, a simple one. Most supermarkets sell bell peppers in 4 colors: green, red, yellow, and orange. Do the different colors of bell peppers have different nutritional benefits? Which one do you take? This, the red one, or that, the green one? Surprisingly, the short answer is they do have different nutritional benefits. Peppers generally have a lot going for them. They're low in calories. Pretty much all varieties are excellent sources of vitamins A and C, potassium, and a whole host of other factors. Choose this or choose that. The truth is that red peppers by far pack the most nutrition because they've been on the vine the longest. Green peppers are harvested early because they have a chance to then turn yellow, orange, and red. So compared to green bell peppers, the red ones have almost 11 times more beta-carotene and 2 times more vitamin C. And so once again, as we often hear, the more colorful your diet, the better off you are. This or that, speaking of color, does what color clothing you choose to wear affect your mood or your behavior or how others interact with you? And the short answer, it's a definitive yes. The psychology of colors has long been used in fields like marketing and advertising. Color is considered one of the most powerful tools to convey certain feelings and ideas in a variety of personal, commercial, and creative outlets. Science has consistently shown that color plays an important role in instilling and evoking certain moods and emotions that can affect our judgments and our decisions. And it's fascinated scholars for hundreds of years. Back in 1810, for example, Johann Goethe, a German scientist, writer, and poet, he theorized on color and psychological functioning in his work entitled The Theory of Colors. He linked color categories to emotional responses such as warmth and excitement. And countless others have focused on general associations that people have to colors and their corresponding influence on behavior. Some have studied such things as what wall color best facilitates employee alertness and productivity. Choose blue as an office color, for example, to promote alertness and productivity, and to encourage collaboration and productivity, and to instill calmness and stability. And here's a somewhat obvious one. If you're an athlete, you might want to choose red. It's often associated with passion and aggression, as well as dominance, power, and courage. Ancient Roman soldiers wore red tunics, since it was the symbol of the god of war, Mars. A host of studies have concluded that wearing red in athletic competition may convey dominance and actually lead to a competitive advantage. Choose black to command respect. It also represents dignity and elegance and is said to have a slimming and trimming effect. And yellow? Yellow is most often associated with awareness, optimism, confidence, excitement, creativity, and alertness. And it adds enthusiasm that brightens a mood. It's said that yellow can lead to an increase in the production of serotonin in the brain, one of the natural body chemicals that controls our mood. And when someone is considering buying a car, considerations often include technology, safety, resale value, and obviously cost. But another important item that often tops the list is clearly the color of the car. And according to PPG, a global supplier of paints, nearly 60% of consumers identified color as a major factor in purchasing their car. So much so, in fact, that more than half of those surveyed said they would rather wait for their color of choice than opt for a second choice. And speaking of cars and colors and this and that, historically, white has long been one of the most popular color choices for cars. And studies have repeatedly shown that a white car could keep you safer on the road because it tends to be the most visible at night and in most weather conditions, except snow. The truth is, though, that white is actually second only to yellow when it comes to accident avoidance. And on the topic of accidents and insurance, some people believe that a red car costs more to insure than other color cars. Think bright red sports car. The truth is, as you may also suspect, a red car won't increase your insurance rates. Those depend on not the color of your car, but on a host of other factors, like your driving record, your age, where you live. Changing gears a bit, but still this and that. Imagine that you need milk, so you go to the store to pick some up. And when you get to the dairy aisle, you see there are dozens of options. 1%, 2%, skim, dairy, almond, soy, oat, chocolate. Although you thought you knew what you wanted when you got there, you now stand there with no idea which to select. There are so many choices, it's easy to get overwhelmed. And there's actually a name for that phenomenon. It's called the paradox of choice. And it has to do with having too many options, too many choices in life. The theory is that because we're often faced with too many options, it becomes increasingly difficult to make a single choice. So what happens is we fall back on our old reliable go-tos rather than trying something new. Instead of this or that, we default to our this. The paradox of choice suggests that while we might believe having a host of choices or options will make it easier for us to choose something that we'll be satisfied with, having too many options has been shown to require too much effort on our part. And that results in our having less satisfaction overall. It seems that as the number of choices increases, so does the difficulty of knowing what we prefer. And the result, instead of increasing our freedom to have what we want, it limits our freedom to decide. And here's one to consider. It's often said that our habits are the unconscious decisions we make about how to act or even feel without having to think about them. While we may assume that we're continually making conscious and deliberate decisions throughout our day, it's often reported that somewhere between 40 and 50% of our daily behaviors are really driven by habit that we automatically engage in without any conscious thought. Whether it's buttoning a button, tying a shoelace, putting on your glasses, pouring a cup of coffee. Over time, as you repeatedly make the same decision and the same choices about how to do something, your brain develops an automatic pattern. And what once were decisions between choosing this or that has become automatic action or habit with no decision making involved. And it seems that by following our habit, we eliminate making choices of this or that, and we lighten somehow our mental workload. It's said that the result is that we avoid something called decision fatigue. It's said that some of the consequences of decision fatigue can include making poor choices or struggling to reach a decision, even after giving great deliberation, sometimes avoiding making any choice. It's well documented, for example, that former President Barack Obama followed a strict routine of daily habits to avoid decision fatigue, so that he could preserve his mental energy and decision-making efforts for what he considered to be more important things, being the president. He's been quoted as having said, "You'll see I only wear gray or blue suits. I'm trying to pare down decisions," he said. "I don't want to make decisions about what I'm eating or wearing because I have too many other decisions to make." And President Obama wasn't the only one who chose to avoid decision fatigue. Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook fame, he's famously known to have worn a gray t-shirt to work almost every day. And he's quoted as saying similar things. "I want to clear my life to make it so that I don't have to make as many big decisions about small things." He said, quote, "I feel like I'm not doing my job if I spend any of my energy on things that are silly or frivolous about my life, like deciding what to wear every day." And finally, here's one last this or that to consider. Would you rather? And it refers to something called the social proof theory. Here goes. You're visiting a new city, and you've done your homework about which restaurant you'd like to go to. As you approach the restaurant you decided upon, you see it's a couple doors down from another restaurant. The one you chose, based on looking at the menu and the reviews online, your homework, it's empty. There's not a soul there. Not one person dining. The other one, a couple doors down, is packed to the gills, and there's a line to get in. Do you choose this, the one you decided on beforehand, that's empty, or that, the one that's crowded? Do you now toss aside what you read and may have heard about, the empty one, the one you were planning on going, and now assume it's an empty restaurant because it must not be as good as the crowded one? Otherwise, how do you explain the empty versus crowded situation? If you choose to go to the crowded restaurant based solely on the fact that it's crowded and the one you were planning on is empty, well, that's what's come to be known as social proof. It's the idea that since so many other people are behaving a certain way, it must be the right way and the right choice. The theory suggests that people naturally want what other people have, and they feel a certain level of comfort from following the choices of others rather than having to think about the situation themselves. There's evidence of social proof around us everywhere, and much of it is subconsciously registering in our brain. Social proof suggests that rather than using your own independent decision-making resources, or even your habits, you follow that herd mentality and put no thought into the choice. I'm Jay Elias. Thank you for watching this episode of Live and Learn. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to your joining me again for another program designed to enhance and encourage your personal wellness and awareness. And until then, remember, it's never too late to learn. And in closing, I'd like to leave you with the words of Henry Ford. Thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably the reason why so few engage in it.